I didn't know anything about wireless networking when I took that role. So I just asked why all the time. And what was interesting is when you ask somebody why and they can't tell you, well, then there's a better way to do it. So that opens the door to go explore how you can do things differently, how you can do things better. And it also makes it a little less vulnerable. So people know, oh, wait, I can share my opinion. They're not going to criticize me for it. So it takes a little bit of the uncertainty away from the other folks in the organization to kind of share their thoughts. And I will tell you, even when I felt like I knew what I was doing, I still acted like I didn't use that why question because it was so powerful.
Technology has transformed how we live, work, and connect. And behind that change are visionary people with bold ideas. Welcome to the Bridgecast, where host Scott Kinka explores hybrid work, AI, and our evolving future with tech's brightest minds. Presented by Bridgepointe Technologies, the nation's leading tech advisory firm. Experience a better way. The Bridgepointe way.
Welcome to another episode of the Bridgecast. Super excited for this one. We are here at Bridgepointe Tech Summit. Chad, you got here this morning.
I did.
All right, love it. The next wave, we're here in Miami, and I am super thrilled to be joined by Chad Towns, who is the Senior Vice President of AT&T Partner Solutions. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thrilled to be here.
I'm super glad. We got you like fresh off the plane.
Yes.
You threw your bags in the room and here you are.
That's the only way to do it. That's the way this industry works. So
I love it. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit, how the industry works. Chad has spent more than 30 years in the AT&T ecosystem and in many jobs there, right?
Can't believe it.
We're going to get into that. You're going to tell us more. From large scale operations, customer service, global delivery, and now here as the head of partnerships. His focus has always been on growth, innovation, people. And I think really what we want to focus on is enterprises face the next challenge around enterprise connectivity, AI-driven networking, hybrid work. You know, what's that ultimately going to mean at AT&T and for your team? And our hope is to explore that here on the show. Perfect. So give it up for Chad from your home base there, and we're going to get into it. All good? You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Well thrown. So Chad, you've been at AT&T for several decades.
Yes.
I guess which in tech years is several millennia at this point. That's pretty amazing. What has kept you inspired and evolving over 30 years?
A lot of things, but the biggest one for me is just AT&T is such a big company. I've been able to explore so many different avenues. So I've been able to work in our wholesale industry, our consumer business, our business clients. I've done operations, I've done network. So I've been able to get in technology, out of technology, see how it works and apply it with customers.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm a little bit of a unicorn at times because I've been deep in the weeds on the technology side, but I feel like I can go talk to a customer just like they're my best friend at any time as well. So it's been that balance that's let me go in and out of the different parts of the organizations.
I mean, I love that. You said operations and here you are on partnerships. Like it feels sometimes like oil and water at the end of the day.
But what you learn so much there is what customers really want. In my last job, I was delivering for customers. And so I heard every day when they had a problem, when things were going well, whatever they needed. And so it just translated perfectly into actually doing it.
Yeah.
So
what, throughout all those experiences, I mean, I'm sure there's been, and you've mentioned some crazy learning experiences, but let's just focus on one because we have a lot of IT leaders who pay attention. Like, how has your perspective on leadership changed as you've sort of morphed throughout really one of America's largest and oldest organizations, right?
It's changed dramatically because I've had them in several instances. I've gone into something I knew absolutely nothing about.
Yeah.
One of which I went in to lead an organization that was deploying high density wireless networks for stadium and venues. Yeah. I didn't know anything about the technology. All I knew is that it was broken. We needed to get it fixed. It was the dawn of the iPhone. Phones didn't work when you went to these places. You're at the airport, a convention center, like that. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
We need to make it work. And so it was the curiosity. It was to jump in with just eyes wide open to say, what do we need to do? What does the customer need? Bring all the right engineers there to make it happen. But I learned too is that it took a balance of a business leader and the technology leader to tackle those kinds of problems.
Yeah.
Because engineers looked at it one way. The customer was looking at it a different way of what they needed, not how to make it work. And you needed somebody to kind of blend them together. And that's kind of where I've fit in. My curiosity, I want to know how it works. But at the end of the day, I don't really care as long as we deliver what the customer is asking for.
Got it. So researching that project, I guess you probably spend tons of time in the 700 level of some stadium someplace just to see the experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been in more stadiums than I care to, usually when they're empty though.
All right, well, we always do this because we talk about sports all the time. You got to give me the home squads. Where's your fandom lie?
So I grew up in St. Louis. I'm a diehard St. Louis Cardinal baseball fan.
Okay.
Problem with living in St. Louis is we've had a team and not had a team in the NFL over the years.
Yeah.
I've been gone for quite a while. I haven't lived in St. Louis since I've started work. So I'm hate to admit it this year, but I'm a New Orleans Saints football fan because I adopted them just because next closest thing. And at the time in St. Louis, you couldn't be a Kansas City Chiefs fan. And so I had to go somewhere else. It was a rivalry. Now it's the state. But nowadays, you drive around St. Louis, you see Kansas City banners everywhere.
I was going to say, you chose poorly.
I did. We had a little run there. But if you've never gone to a game in New Orleans and you don't have a team, you will totally dive in. It's just like college all over again.
I love that. And you live, where do you live now?
I live in Dallas.
You live in Dallas now. Okay, fantastic. All right, so, you're in partner solutions. That can mean a lot of things.
Yes.
So for people who maybe either have a relationship with AT&T, but it's direct, or somebody are just like curious about what partner solutions means, just define that for us. What does the role mean? And then how do partners live inside of the AT&T ecosystem?
Yeah, a lot of people could just call it indirect sales. I mean, really what it is it's really split into two big buckets. Bucket one is our wholesale business. So think of the other large carriers that are selling networks. If they need to buy networks to fill out their network to meet their end user customers, cell site backhaul, large pipes, that are, industry to industry type sales. And the other half of partner solutions is what really partner solutions is all about is how do we go to market and meet our customers when we can't be everywhere they need us to be?
Completely.
We will never have enough salespeople to meet the needs of our customers. So we need other people in the ecosystem to build those relationships, but we want them to then still come to us for the connectivity and the support that they need to meet the customer's demands.
Yeah. How important are these partners to customers with how quickly you see both your business and the broader technology landscape evolving?
They're becoming critically important. I mean, first and foremost, like I just said, we could never have enough people to meet the needs. You just need the sheer volume of folks. But more importantly, too, customers are looking to buy from people they know and people they trust and people they see all the time. And that's where these communities come in because they're able to go in and build that relationship day in and day out with the small, the medium, or even the enterprise size customer to give them what they really want. And, we want to be there to support that, but we can't be front and center on everyone that's there. It would just never work.
Got it. So before we jump into maybe a little bit more kind of big picture and trends, let's finish the segment on Chad.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
With give me your superpower as a leader.
Ooh. I think I said it already once. It's curiosity.
Okay, you did.
It is. I don't think you can do anything if you don't really want to know how it works.
Yeah.
And I was the one when I was a kid, I was taking things apart and trying to put them back together. And so that curiosity has always been there. And it always goes back to my very first job. My very first boss with the company made me go out and answer phones on a customer service line, made me ride with a field technician, made me go out on sales calls. And so right at the very beginning of my career, it was instilled in me that you have to really know what goes on around you, not just what you do to make what you do better.
Yeah.
And I've just really carried that through my entire organization, my entire time with the company. I make my folks go work in the opposite side of their business at least 1 week a year. So my field technicians would sit in call centers. My call centers would ride with technicians in the trucks. And you get an appreciation for how things really work and what struggles they have that you can help with.
Kind of occurs to me, you think about curiosity, and I love that.
Yes.
What you just said. But kind of in a lot of ways, to be curious, you almost have to admit what you don't know.
Yes.
Sometimes problematic in business, like it's a risk to do that. I think it's sometimes problematic for CIOs when you couldn't possibly know everything. I mean, you meet with CIOs all the time. Do you agree that maybe that's sometimes a problem? Like the opposite of curiosity is, I think you know everything.
I think it can be, but I will tell you, it's funny you say that because as soon as you said it, a story popped in my head. But
tell me.
Well, I'll go back to the job with the industry. I didn't know anything about wireless networking when I took that role.
Yeah.
And so I just asked why all the time. And what was interesting is when you ask somebody why and they can't tell you, well, then there's a better way to do it. So that opens the door to go explore how you can do things differently, how you can do things better. And it also makes it a little less vulnerable. So, people know, oh, wait, I can share my opinion. They're not going to criticize me for it. So it takes a little bit of the uncertainty away from the other folks in the organization to kind of share their thoughts. And I will tell you, even when I felt like I knew what I was doing, I still acted like I didn't, to use that why question, because it was so powerful. It opened so many doors, and it saved us so much time, energy, money, and all the deployments we did, because the team really felt connected, like we were on the same level. Now, there were times where we had to make the hard decisions as well.
Of course,
There always is, but people felt like at least they had a voice and they were heard, and it drove a lot of collaboration.
So let's take all the pundits and the ratings and the this and that. People know what AT&T is,
Yes.
right? At the end of the day. So let's put all that off to the side for a moment and
Okay.
just talk about. I mean, you guys have been doing connectivity forever. I think, gosh, technically the founder of the business is still Alexander Graham Bell. That's the way we talk about, okay,
150 years ago right now.
exactly. So, but connectivity into the home, into the office, whatever, like, we're accustomed to it now. We have expectations, and connectivity is pretty ubiquitous, generally speaking.
It's kind of like air. You don't know until you don't have it.
Until you don't have it. That's exactly where I was going to go. How do you have the conversation now in kind of the state of business, the state of remote work, the state of AI, everything going on? Like, how is network a strategic conversation for businesses?
It's interesting right now. It's so in demand. You can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Part of the challenges right now is we don't even know what we need, because we're constantly adding all this stuff with AI. The amount of data that's being consumed, the payloads, the requirements for latency. I mean, there are things we're building into the network today that most people don't even know they need it. They just don't know it yet, or they're going to know they need it in a couple of weeks and they're going to need it immediately. And so I think that's the thing, is the pace of change and the pace of demand. When you decide to go all in on one of those initiatives, instantaneously, you need something that you didn't even know you needed.
Yeah. I mean, I said it on our keynote this morning. Hyperchange obviously eventually drives towards commoditization, but the challenge is that hyperchange is just coming faster right now than it ever has before.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And I think your point is so apropos about, we really don't even know what we're asking for just yet, because these tools are not really implemented in business yet. I'm sure you get asked for your thoughts on all this. And I just did a panel across the hallway around AI. And one of the conversations that sort of came up in the room was IT leaders are being asked to deploy AI, almost like you'd be asking, the IT leader to deploy cloud a couple of years ago. Like, we just got to go get some. We don't really know what it's for or what have you. I mean, in your conversations with customers, people really know what they want to do yet? Or are we just are we doomed to repeat cloud? I mean, how's your feeling on that?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think you could look at it from both directions. I definitely think there's a little bit of cloud in there, that people are pushing it so hard. I think the market is getting saturated. I think there's all kinds of investment and dollars flowing into it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it can sustain itself. That being said, I don't think we can get away from it. It's so powerful. There's so much going on with it that we're going to have to do it. I think we're in that lull right now where we know we need to do it. We don't exactly know where and how. And so it's that killer app's going to come out, that killer use case. But that killer use case is different for every single company. It's different for every single business. Right now, it seems to be highly leveraged toward cost-cutting measures.
Yeah.
But the reality is if you use it for the right strategic reasons, it can be, drive revenue. It can drive cost through a different vehicle. There's so many other ways that it's going to drive value that we haven't even figured out just yet.
Yeah, 100%. You talk about supporting all that. It's moving. We don't know what we're building. And then you guys have invested, hundreds of millions of dollars into the network, and you're constantly upgrading and you're moving that way. And I'm sure in your role, and you've been in multiple roles throughout the business, honestly, like, if we really don't know what we're chasing with AI, how do you know where to place those dollars? Like, how do you think about that in terms of placing the next bet?
Yeah. So what we're looking at right now is we're doing a lot of work around, obviously we know where all the data centers are and we're helping to build out to them. And so making sure we have hyper connectivity into every one of the data centers, because at the end of the day, these language models are so big and are going to drive so much demand. You have to be there. Then we're not focused necessarily on connecting them together as much as how do we build the capillaries to that network so the end users that need to use it can get access to it easily?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have to be a customized build. So how do we get 10 gig, 100 gig, 400 gig circuits into the network so that when a customer needs access to one of those data peering points, we can give it instantaneously? And so that's where we're hyper focused right now, and just putting more and more network into the ground, more and more spectrum into the air. The other thing that's unique about what we're doing at AT&T is, we don't care if it's on fiber. We don't care if it's wireless. We just know that a customer wants connectivity, and they don't care how they get it. We just need to make sure it's there. It's as fast as possible with as lowest latency as it's enabled. And if it's not exactly where they need it, how do we get it there as fast as we can, even if it's through wireless, and then come build the fiber behind it?
Yeah. It's a brain tease to sit and think about how just like the general shape of networks has changed just post-COVID.
Right.
Because we left offices and then still need to maintain offices and then really kind of in the era of SaaS first, but now in the era of AI where it's like it's almost more architected around, your network's access to the services that your endpoints want access to.
That's really it, is how do we make that happen? And the best way to do it's with fiber. And so how do we build and build and build? It's kind of interesting. We're sitting here in Miami today. Every month we're building enough fiber that we could go from here to LA to Seattle and back every month. And we're doing that because it goes back to your point. We don't know what people are going to use it for, but we know they're going to need it. And so how do we get it everywhere they could possibly need it?
I love that. Let's go from these big stories down to a specific one from because I found this really interesting. So FirstNet,
yes,
which you talk about, is a great example of kind of a purpose-driven innovation. Right now, a specific use case, you're going after it. It's obviously using your kind of ubiquitous wireless and network assets, but it's built for a very specific purpose.
Yes.
So, one, tell everybody a little bit more about FirstNet, and then just sort of talk about the success and how it figures into the way you're planning other kinds of purpose-built innovation like that.
What FirstNet really is it's a purpose-built network that we did for first responders. So it's enabled for fire, police, the military, anybody that's, medical care, anywhere that you need dire access in an emergency situation. And we built it not just to make it a better network or a slice of our network, but it's actually a dedicated network. We have dedicated spectrum. And if a customer needs that in an emergency, we can actually block everybody else off of the network and only leave it open to the first responder so they can communicate amongst themselves.
Wow.
So that's the first and foremost, portion of it. But from there, there's expansion. We expand on that. Is then we said, okay, even our networks get damaged in a hurricane or a tornado or big. So then we had to build the assets to fill in the gaps real time if there's a problem. So satellite cows on wheels, light trucks. We've even developed drones that can fly over and broadcast spectrum over an area. We can follow first responders as they're working through a forest fire. As the network's getting destroyed, we're right behind them with communications for them to continue to use as they're going through these. So it started off as this nationwide network to give them access, but as we got into it, new use cases kept popping up of how do we do this? How do we fill in this gap? And it's just turned into just a remarkable opportunity for us. And it's made our country more safe.
Yeah.
It's changed the way we do business. But all of those things we have in turn put back into our commercial network. So it's made our network stronger.
Yeah. I mean, that's an incredible story. I think a lot of people don't really understand that that's there. And don't think about the logistics of what you were talking about. So one thing to talk about a dedicated network, it's yet another to sort of be rolling trucks to replace it behind the front lines of disasters. That's really an amazing story.
Yeah. They don't need it when they need it all the time. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle of a hurricane. We're parked on the edge waiting for it to happen so that we can immediately fill the gaps.
I love that. I'd love to transition.
Okay.
And focus a little bit on, our collective customers. We're talking to the CIO here.
Yes.
And I think what's super interesting about your career trajectory is all those roles that you were in.
Yes.
So I want to pull some nuggets out of you if we can. So I think, first off, we talked earlier today in the keynote about how, you've got technology curves and we generally don't care out here in the commodity because they're busy here, but we still have to feed that, with the feed optimization to get expenses into the curve.
Yes.
But CIOs are building value for their business in the wave, right? In the disruptive period. Having crossed so many areas of AT&T, what I would love to ask you is, how do you lead big teams in varying roles with varying KPIs and responsibilities and personalities and pay scales through really macro level disruption inside of a business? Give us some advice on that.
The thing that I've found there is you really have to, go back and focus on the customer. In our case, is what does the customer need? What's the collective? And the customer could be the shareholder. The customer could be an actual customer. The customer could be the groups that you support. It could be just the network. But what does the customer really need is the first and foremost. And then you got to find a way to get everybody in that organization focused on that one need.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I found was successful with it is you got to build custom metrics. Everybody wants to be measured. Am I doing a good job?
Yeah.
But the metric isn't the same for every group. And so you have to change that metric so it ties back to the central theme, but it's specific enough that the people in that group can say, if I achieve this, it lends to that greater good. It lends to the collective effort that we're driving toward. Getting everybody focused on one mission, but one mission isn't one mission. It's 1,000 little missions that the leader can then tie all together. And then you also have to communicate how those all fit together and what we're working towards.
Next one, you guys, obviously AT&T is building really the infrastructure to support the next wave and the next wave and the next wave, right? Whatever those waves may be, we know the ride that we're on right now, obviously. What's the one thing that you think IT leaders should be doing now that's maybe different from what they've done in the past to prepare for, this wave or the next?
Part of it, I think, is really building redundancy and resiliency into their networks.
Okay.
I think as you get more reliance upon technology, especially with AI, if that's how you build your business and it goes down, how are you going to function?
True.
I mean, you have to have contingency plans for that. And so I think a lot of our customers and a lot of just businesses in general, they build a very good network and they're okay with slight disruptions here and there. And I think over time, they're going to become more demanding and it's going to be harder and harder to get away from those. You put everything you do in a certain function into an agent, an agent model on the AI and it goes down, well, then your business stops. And so I think that's one of the areas is how do you build that resiliency, whether that be, dual networks to feed it, wireless backup, even if it's just mission critical components of that. I think a lot of us are very single threaded in the way that we're going about the business.
We're talking about agents replacing humans in the business and doing all this stuff. The difference is when the network's down, the humans still working.
Correct.
Right. At the end of the day, I'll tell just a quick funny story as an aside. As everyone saw today during Bridgepoint's keynote, we announced, our AI agent that's trained on all of our internal models. For our IT listeners, wouldn't matter as much, but for our partners, it's trained up for them to be able to do their job better, easier, faster, quicker.
Absolutely.
We were rehearsing yesterday during the AWS outage. So I'm like, I guess when AWS comes back up, we're going to screenshot everything we were going to show just in case AWS is having a bad day tomorrow, because that was an epically bad day for AWS yesterday.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, let's just jump to some fun.
Okay.
All right. We're going to the fun segment. All right. First, I need a shameless prediction. Give me one. 12 to 18 months. It can be sports, politics, it can be tech, whatever you want, but give us something that we'll look back and have some fun.
Yeah, I know it's not going to be the Saints winning the Super Bowl.
Well, that was your prediction. The Saints won't win the Super Bowl. You heard it here.
Yeah, that's pretty much there. I think, I'll go bold a little bit I do think there's going to be a little bit of a bubble burst in this AI ecosystem. Okay. I think if you look back from a year from now, absolutely, we're going to be running toward AI. It's going to be being invested everywhere. But I think there's so much money flowing into it that there's going to have to be a little bit of a reallocation of some of that into the areas that matter, especially as people start coming up with the killer use cases for it. What does it really mean for my business? I think it's going to shift some focus.
And my next question was going to be, do you have a contrarian hot take about AI? And that was it. So you nailed it.
Yes, he's doing. I don't think it's going away, but I think it's going to get some, it's going to have a little bit of a facelift done it.
We love sharing books. What are you reading right now? What's on the nightstand?
I get away from technology and things when I'm at home. I'm reading Long Shot by Harlan Coben.
Okay.
It's a mystery novel. It's a writer. He's got a series of books. I started reading them because they were based in Connecticut and I lived in Connecticut at the time. So
totally,
a lot of what he wrote about, I sat in that diner or I went to that location and, but they make you think, there's always, you're trying to figure out who did it. And, again, it's my curiosity, but it's in a way that doesn't keep me up at night.
My oldest daughter consistently abuses me over my reading choices because she's always like, Dad, like you and I always talk about books all the time, and all you do is read business books now. So I'm like, and then you're about the fourth person this year has said, I don't read business books, or that's not your first choice.
Yes.
I'm going to have to heed some of her advice and yours on that one. All right. Last one.
Okay.
Kind of fun. We're in some dystopian future, whatever that is.
Okay.
You can choose your own. Today, we've had a lot of conversation about the zombie apocalypse.
Okay.
One app still working on your AT&T wireless phone. Which is the one you would use?
God almighty, that's a hard one. Probably Spotify.
Okay.
I mean, I think because if you're stuck and you have nowhere to go, I love to throw the music on in the background. It can change your feeling. It can change your mood. You can get some podcasts out of it. You can maybe learn about AI.
Okay.
So it gives you something to fill the void, fill the time, and fill some of that curiosity that I couldn't get elsewhere.
Well, you gave me the corollary question then, which is what's the most useful app?
Oh boy. I mean, right now for me, it's probably Uber. I mean, I hate to say that because it's so basic, but I like to have fun. So I would end up leaving my car all over the place. But was it for Uber? So I really enjoy that freedom it gives you to just go and do. You don't have to worry about traffic. You don't have to worry about parking. You just get out there and go. And I like to be around other people, and it gets me there when I need it.
Well, this was a great chat. We squeezed it in between a bunch of sessions. This was great. I would love to have an opportunity. If somebody wants to learn a little bit more about you, I'm sure you're out on socials and all that. How do they find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not super active, but I'm working on beefing that up a little bit. You can look us up via AT&T. I'd be more than happy to talk with anybody that wants to get into a one-on-one conversation and dive a little deeper.
I love that. Well, thank you, first off, Chad. I appreciate you being here, making it to Miami, jamming this into a half hour that we had in between. We're going to go into a meeting right after this. So, here we are. Thank you.
Absolutely. Enjoy it.
Thrilled to have you on the show.
Perfect. Thanks.
And that is a wrap on this episode of the Bridgecast. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, hit subscribe, leave us a review, share it with your team. And we're so happy to have Chad Towns as our guest. Thanks.
Thank you.
Listen, if you made it this far, there must have been some good content, or you're just a fan or a relative of mine. In either case, we appreciate you spending your most valuable asset with us, your time. We don't take that lightly. We'd also like to say one more time that we're appreciative of Bridgepointe Technologies and their belief and sponsorship of this show. We hope that if you or someone you know is thinking about your company's digital transformation, or simply the next IT project that you may not have the resources, budget, or time to get to, I'm sure that Bridgepointe, one of the country's fastest growing technology advisory and procurement firms, can help. Check out bridgepointetechnologies.com. Don't forget the E on Bridgepointe, or simply reach out to me at Skinka, SKINKA, at bpt3.net. Also take a minute, please, if you would, to give us a 5-star review on your favorite platform. It helps give us the visibility to reach other people like you. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bridge. I'm Scott Kinka, and until next time, there's a lot of noise out there in business and in life. Do what you can to be the signal. Thanks.